To this video, I'll be talking to you about positive pressure airway therapy. I'll be talking about choosing modes and machines, which one and why. As you all know, the first commercial use of CPAP started in the year 1986. Before this, the standard therapy for obstructive sleep apnea was tracheostomy. It was Colin Sullivan and his colleague who for the first time demonstrated that CPAP is an effective measure for the treatment of obstructive sleep apnea. Ever since the first unit which was introduced, which was basically developed from the vacuum cleaner blower and a custom made mask, there has been significant advances in the PAP therapy in the last 3 decades. The modern machines now are much smaller, quieter, lighter and smarter with wide range of interfaces and modes. A number of new modes have been introduced basically to fulfill different needs of the patient. CPAP, which is the first device developed in 1986, remains the treatment of choice for most of OSA patients. A number of randomized controlled trials, meta-analysis and systematic reviews have shown a significant reduction or reversal of OSA related signs and symptoms like snoring, excessive daytime sleepiness, unfreshing and fragmented sleep and cognitive dysfunction. There has been significant reduction in the risk of accidents, there has been increased productivity and decrease in the long-term complications, the cardiovascular complications like hypertension, heart disease and strokes. But CPAP has limitation. If you see if you look into the compliance with CPAP therapy, like in any other chronic treatment, like any other chronic disease therapies, this is associated with suboptimal adherence in large percentage of patients. There are a number of reasons for poor compliance with CPAP therapy. Amongst them, the most important are intolerance to high pressure, difficulty in exhalation, particularly when the CPAP pressures are very high. There are some group of patients who are pressure intolerant and they may not be even able to withstand even the lower pressures. Nasal stuffiness, which can be due to allergic reactions, may be there, and coexistent central apnea and hypoventilation. So a number of newer modes of PAP delivery have been developed to improve compliance in this group of patients. Now, what are the newer modes which have been introduced in the last 2 decades to look into the different needs of patients with sleep apnea? Amongst them are CPAP with C-flex, bilevel positive airway pressure. This device comes in 3 modes: BiPAP-S, BiPAP-ST and BiPAP-T. Auto-titrating, auto-adjusting PAP, or commonly known as auto CPAP, auto BiPAP, adaptive servo ventilation, although there has been some controversy with this mode in this thing, and lastly average volume assured pressure support ventilation, which is AVAPS or VT BiPAP. So I'll go to each one of them, highlighting the merits and demerits of each mode and try to highlight the indications in which you should be using these modes. Let us go to the CPAP with C-flex. Now, what do we mean by CPAP with C-flex? As I mentioned to you that one of the most important reasons for poor compliance in patients with CPAP is pressure intolerance, particularly if the pressures are very high and the patient is not able to breathe out or exhale against that high pressure. Many of these patients wake up in the night and have poor compliance with such devices. So here is a graphic display of what we call C-flax. So you can see here very clearly that you have this continuous pressure as you can see in the second column here. And what happens in C-flax, that at the beginning of expiration there is a drop in the pressure. The amount of pressure which drops depends on individual patient's requirement, and it can go into 3 levels, level 1, 2 and 3, which may be 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters or 3 centimeter drop in this thing. So there is an initial drop, and then gradually this pressure recovers and comes back to the baseline level at the end of expiration. So it's very important that we must restore the CPAP pressure at the end exhalation, because that is the time the airway is most collapsible and patient can develop an obstructive apnea. Then there is another variety of flexing, that is what we call A-flex, and this A-flex is something which we commonly see with the auto CPAPs. Here you are modulating both the inspiratory as well as the expiratory pressure, as against C-flex, which is mainly an expiratory relief system. So in A-flex, the patient adjusts the inspiratory pressure like an auto CPAP according to the requirement of the patient, and then there is a smooth transition from inspiration to expiration, and then in the expiration there is an initial drop and recovery like we discussed in case of C-flex. So this kind of expiratory pressure relief or smoothing of both inspiratory and expiratory pressures can be used in patients who have difficulty in exhaling, who have difficulty in tolerating high pressures. So this is about the C-flex and the A-flex system. Let's go to the next, that is bilevel positive airway pressure, BPAP, which comes into 3 modes: BPAP-S, BPAP-ST and BPAP-T. What is a BPAP? Initially, those patients of sleep apnea who required very high CPAP pressure, say something more than 15 centimeters of water, this pressure was split into 2 parts, the high inspiratory part and the low expiratory part. And this was basically on the understanding that we need higher pressure during inspiration because we create negative pressure, and low pressure during expiration to keep our upper airway patent. So, and most of these patients had problem of exhaling against high pressure. So this CPAP pressure was split into high IPAP and a low EPAP pressure, and that was basically designed to look into the problem of the patients who were pressure intolerant and who had difficulty exhaling against a high pressure. So if you so basically it is another form of pressure relief during expiration, and the idea of introducing this device was to improve compliance with CPAP patient. So if you really look into, if you try to give all patients BPAP, then you will see that it is not associated with significant improvement in adherence. But if you use BPAP, particularly those patients who have difficulty in exhaling or who have complaints of bloating or who fail with fixed CPAP pressure or auto titrating pressures, or those who have tried even other expiratory pressure relief such as C-flex, then BPAP may be a very good option for these patients. Now, there are certain situations where BPAP should be the first modality of treatment. Now, what are these situations? This is when the patient who has sleep apnea also has coexisting chronic lung diseases, like a patient may have obesity, COPD. So in such situation, patients have chronic respiratory failure, particularly chronic hypercapnic respiratory failure. So patient with coexisting OSA and chronic hypercapnic respiratory failure due to obesity, hypoventilation syndrome, or chronic opioid use, or neuromuscular disorders. These are the situations in which patient will have a combination of obstructive sleep apnea and chronic respiratory failure due to respiratory muscle weakness. So in this situation, BiPAP is the first modality of choice. The another situation where BiPAP should be used as a first line, and particularly the BiPAP should be used as with ST mode, are patients who have coexisting OSA and significant central sleep apnea. So during those central apnea episodes, particularly if they are prolonged and they lead to significant desaturation and arousal, so if we give them a BiPAP ST mode, then we will be able to improve ventilation in these patients and prevent significant drop in the oxygenation. So here you can see that the factors, predicting factors, which would promote or which would indicate the first use of BiPAP is here you can see the odd ratios. So those patients who have a high BMI, so that as I mentioned to you, obesity hyperventilation syndrome, and those with high PCO2 levels, so their odd ratios are high. So these are the patients who would be requiring BiPAP as a first modality of these things. So BiPAP S, ST and T mode, as I mentioned to you, these are the three modes which are commonly used. The BiPAP S is the basic model, which is basically used to treat sleep apnea patient. This is also called bilevel CPAP. So what we are seeing here is that here basically you give it to the patient of sleep apnea who require very high CPAP pressure, particularly say more than 15 centimeters of pressure, or those patients who have particularly difficulty in exhaling against a high positive pressure. So this is the mode bilevel CPAP is used for sleep apnea. Now the other two modes, BiPAP ST and T, are actually different machines. These machines are much more sturdy. These machines have much higher pressure range, and these machines have much higher flow capabilities, because these two modes basically we will be using for ventilation. So that means if there is a chronic respiratory failure, chronic hypercapnic respiratory failure, or if there is an overlap syndrome when patient has OSA and chronic respiratory diseases. So here we not only you want to stabilize the upper airway of this patient, but you also have to augment ventilation. So you require much more higher pressures, and when you have higher pressure, then there is likely to be more leakage, and when there is a more leakage, you need higher leak compensation. So these machines with ST and T mode are very much different from BiPAP S mode, which is simply a bilevel CPAP, which is needed to treat, which is required for patient with obstructive sleep apnea. So BiPAP S and BiPAP ST is used particularly when the patient has simultaneously hypercapnic respiratory failure, and you use ST mode because one, if the patient has central sleep apneas, a patient is not triggering, or there are situations like neuromuscular diseases, there are some situations like obesity hypoventilation, these patients fail to trigger the machine. So you have to provide a backup rate to maintain a given amount of ventilation. So BiPAP ST and T mode is used to provide NIV to patient who unreliably cycle the device between EPAP and IPAP due to muscle weakness and abnormal ventilatory support. So I think it is now very clear that when we should use BiPAP S, when we should use BiPAP ST, and when we should use BiPAP T. S we should be using when patient with obstructive sleep apnea. ST, those patients who unreliably cycle between inspiration and expiration. And T mode is particularly used if there is a patient ventilator asynchrony, and the patient is not able to accept the device, the BiPAP device and the mode at different settings. So you have to override patient's ventilator drive and give and put them on a T mode. It's something like a control mode ventilation in this thing. So here you can see that this patient of neuromuscular disorder, the first two breaths, third breath patient has triggered himself, and then patient fails to trigger. So here we have set the breath rate of 12 breaths per minute. So if within this 5-second window patient is not able to trigger himself, the machine will give you breath, will give the breath to the patient. So here you can see that 2 breaths are triggered by the patient, whereas the 3 breaths have been given by the machine. So this is the BiPAP ST mode, BiPAP. So next we go to auto titrating, auto adjust, or what we commonly call as auto CPAPs. Now, what was the need to develop auto CPAP? It's very important to understand. Initially, this device was developed to provide an opportunity to titrate out of the lab, the sleep apnea patient out of the lab. So initially, particularly when a patient is being used for home sleep testing or portable sleep monitoring, then those who are found to be positive on this monitoring, they need to undergo CPAP titration, and auto CPAP were initially developed for this purpose. Now we use auto CPAPs for 3 basic purposes. The first, the patient who complain of inability to tolerate the degree of fixed pressure which is required to prevent all respiratory events in different sleep positions and sleep stages. So there are people who may have a REM predominant disease, there are patients who may have position dependent sleep apnea. So within a night their requirement of pressure may be very high, and to give them a continuous fixed CPAP at a very high level may not be tolerated by many of these patients. So in these cases, these patients may benefit from a auto CPAP, because here the pressure will vary according to the degree of airflow obstruction in different sleep stages. So the device may reach higher pressures when the patient is supine or in the rapid eye movement sleep, but remain at lower and potentially more tolerable pressures otherwise. So the average pressure drops significantly, and it is only during, say, about 30 to 40% of the sleep time when patient will be either in REM sleep or in the supine position, higher pressures can be given to this. Now, the other indications, the patient subjected to factors that might significantly vary their pressure requirements over a period of time. Now, we know that the severity of sleep apnea is dependent on factors like body weight, use of alcohol, and upper airway obstruction. So, if a person who is using intermittently alcohol and his alcohol consumption varies, or those who develops nasal congestions due to allergies intermittently or seasonal allergies, or those who develop upper respiratory infections leading to nasal obstruction. Now, these are situations, or if there are wide variations in the body weight, so the pressure requirement of this patient will keep changing over a period of time. So these patients may do very well when they are given auto CPAP than the 6P CPAP device. The last, as I mentioned to you, probably was the first indication for auto CPAP is when you diagnose sleep apnea using home sleep apnea testing or portable sleep monitoring, when the access to laboratory titration of CPAP may be delayed or excessively inconvenient due to the distance from the sleep laboratory. Moreover, when we try to diagnose a patient of sleep apnea, particularly the one who have an obvious disease and those who don't have comorbidities, if we are able to diagnose our patient with simple portable monitoring, then doing a titration in the lab will defeat the basic purpose of doing portable monitoring. So these patients should be followed by, after the diagnosis, followed by CPAP titration at home only. And for this purpose, auto CPAP is a very good device, and it has been seen that this is the graph here. You can see that when a patient is using CPAP, and you can see the various fluctuation in the pressure, and the pressure is fluctuating something between 5 to 10 or 11 centimeters, depending on the sleep stage, depending on the body position. And then after going through it, you can actually calculate an average pressure, which you can give to the patient on a fixed CPAP machine. Most of the people will use 95th percentile of the pressure. Now, there has been number of studies to see that if we do in-lab titration, or if we do CPAP titration with an auto CPAP, will there be a difference in the immediate or long-term outcome of this patient? And it has been clearly shown that after 6 weeks of treatment with CPAP, either after auto CPAP titration or in-lab titration, there has not been any significant difference in the improvement of daytime sleepiness and quality of life, and there were no significant difference between the two groups as far as the compliance of CPAP treatment was concerned. The residual AHI was also similar in the two groups. The advantage was that the time from diagnosis to treatment was significantly shorter in the auto CPAP group. So these results suggest that in selected patients with a very high likelihood of uncomplicated moderate to severe OSA can be effectively treated with auto titrating CPAP after a diagnosis of OSA by home sleep apnea testing. Patients who do not improve clinically after initiation of auto CPAP without a titration study should undergo careful re-evaluation with consideration of an attended PAP titration. So it's very important to select your patient properly, that who are the kind of people who are likely to be diagnosed by portable monitoring and who will respond to auto CPAP therapy. At present, we have no evidence for home sleep testing and auto CPAP titration for patients with significant comorbidities like congestive heart failure or overlap syndrome or patient with chronic respiratory failure. Auto CPAP devices vary in the way they respond to changes in the pressure response to an event. So different devices have different algorithms, and they may define to changes in the airflow magnitude. So they may respond to apneas, hypopneas, others respond to flow limitation, some may respond to snoring, and others may respond to airway impotence. And not only this, there may be a difference in the response in terms of pressures for a given amount of abnormality. So there is a lot of variation in the way the different auto CPAP of different makes will respond to a particular patient. So what are the disadvantages? The different disadvantages are that different brands of devices may respond very differently to changes in the airflow, as I just mentioned to you. And then if you have high air leaks, particularly these air leaks are around the mask or through the mouth when you are using a nasal mask, these leaks can simulate physiological events as if the patient is having apnea or hypopnea, and this may result in unwanted pressure response. That's the another disadvantage. And then auto CPAP will not be able to differentiate between central and obstructive apnea devices. So, central and obstructive sleep apnea. So, because you don't have any effort signal in this thing. So, whether a patient has central apnea or patient has obstructive apnea, auto CPAP is going to respond with the increase in the pressure response. So, APAP devices, auto CPAP devices have no method of determining whether inspiratory effort is present during an apnea. So, you can see here that this patient has an obstructive apnea and a central apnea. Since it cannot differentiate whether it is a central apnea or an obstructive apnea, there is a pressure response in both the cases. how effective is auto CPAP vis-a-vis fixed CPAP? Should we be using auto CPAP in all our patients? No. We have enough evidence from 4 meta-analyses which have incorporated 30 studies totaling 1,136 participants. The auto-titrating CPAP, what we have seen in this thing, that auto CPAP and fixed CPAP equally improved the apnea-hypopnea index. So there was no difference in the resolution of the disease. As far as the adherence and daytime sleepiness was concerned, it was slightly better with auto CPAP, but these differences were small and of questionable clinical significance. Some studies found that patient preferred auto CPAP, but this was a small group of patients. So overall evidence, if you will see, it shows that there is no significant difference between auto CPAP and a fixed CPAP. So the CPAP, fixed CPAP remains the treatment of choice, and only those patients who have position-dependent sleep apnea, those who have REM-dependent sleep apnea, or those who are not tolerating auto CPAP, probably these are the patients you should consider for treatment with auto CPAP for these things. In another large trial, again crossover studies involving 200 patients, again we found that there was no significant difference in the compliance, in the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, and in terms of improvement in the disease is concerned. Next we go to the auto BPAP. Now what is the difference between auto CPAP and auto BPAP? Auto CPAP, there is an automatic adjustment of the CPAP pressure according to the changing level of upper airway obstruction. In BPAP, as I mentioned to you, that we have 2 pressures. A higher pressure is what is IPAP, and the lower pressure is the EPAP. In auto BPAP, what you have is an automatic adjustment of both the EPAP as well as the IPAP. Now, here I would like to mention that when you are converting a patient of severe sleep apnea who requires very high CPAP pressure, say about 16 or 18 centimeters of pressure, if you want to convert them into BPAP, it is very important to know that at what level you should set EPAP and at what level you should set IPAP. So the convention is that the level at which a patient, when you are doing a CPAP titration, and the level at which there is elimination of apnea, that is the point you should set EPAP. And because EPAP is required to prevent apnea, because apneas usually occur at the end of expiration. So the point on the CPAP titration, when apnea disappear, that is the point where you should set EPAP. And then from that point onwards, hypopnea, snoring, desaturation and arousal is your IPAP. And usually it has been seen that this pressure difference is between 5 to 6 centimeters. So in auto BPAP, what you do is basically you create a window for EPAP as well as the IPAP, and then it automatically adjusts for this thing. So auto BPAP is a machine that automatically adjusts both EPAP and IPAP to maintain an open airway. The physician sets the minimum EPAP, the maximum IPAP, and then the minimum and maximum pressure support. The minimum pressure support is 3 centimeters by default. The advantage of auto BPAP over other PAP modes remains to be demonstrated. It is considered to be a useful rescue therapy mode, and it should be used in patients who are not compliant to CPAP treatment in spite of the usual interventions. So it's very useful in patients who have significant intolerance to pressure and who find BPAP alone unacceptable, or in patients whom an effective bilevel pressure is not known. So sometimes it's really very difficult to titrate this patient and find a suitable EPAP and IPAP, and in such patient, auto BPAP may be a good device. So here you can see that you have a fixed EPAP, you have a fixed IPAP, maximum and minimum, and in between you set the minimum pressure support of 3 centimeters, and then patient modulates pressure supports accordingly. So in some patients, as I said, the auto BPAP mode is superior to CPAP, particularly in patients who are not compliant to the standard CPAP therapy. Next, now we go to adaptive servo-ventilation. What is adaptive servo-ventilation? This mode of ventilation, it is a variant of BPAP. It was basically developed to treat Cheyne-Stokes breathing in patients with congestive heart failure. You know that in Cheyne-Stokes breathing, there is a periodic waxing and waning of breathing. So there is a periodicity. The patient alternately hyperventilates and then hypoventilates and then may develop a period of central apnea. To regulate the breathing, to bring this, to convert this periodicity into a stable breathing, this device has been developed. Now, for situations like this, as I mentioned to you, periodic breathing or Cheyne-Stokes breathing, two devices have been used, both ASV and BPAP, and these are basically were the devices of first indication in non-hypercapnic central apnea or complex sleep apnea. So basically ASV devices attempt to stabilize ventilation in patients with ventilatory instability such as Cheyne-Stokes breathing, narcotic-induced central apnea or complex sleep apnea of unknown etiology. So what exactly we do with this device? As I mentioned to you, it's basically a type of BPAP device where you provide an EPAP and IPAP which is servo-controlled based on the detection of central sleep apnea. The ASV device has a fixed EPAP, and this fixed EPAP is titrated to eliminate obstructive sleep apnea, and then the ASV device changes the inspiratory pressure above the expiratory pressure as required to normalize patient's ventilation. So if patient has no periodic breathing, in that phase, this device will act like a CPAP. So pressure support may be set to a minimum of 0 and a maximum pressure support can be set on the machine, and then when the patient starts this device, it starts as a fixed CPAP, only the EPAP works, and once the patient develops central sleep apnea or periodicity, then the IPAP is given to the patient. Now, this is basically given, the IPAP is given in those phases of periodic breathing when the breathing is waning, and or during the phase of central apnea, and when the patient is having a hyperventilation phase, at that time the IPAP is not provided by the machine. So here, if you can see here, if you look into the graphs, the breathing looks quite stable here, but if you look into the pressure support, you will see that there is a varying pressure support here. There are phases when there is no pressure support, no IPAP, and there are phases when there is an IPAP is there. So this IPAP is given at the time when the patient would have developed hypoventilation phase or central apnea. So with this, you can stabilize the breathing. Again here, you can see the changing pressure supports here, and it matches with the periodicity and provides the stability in the breathing. Another example where you can see the changing pressure support and stabilization of the breathing in these patients. So now we have a new device, a new mode, what we call advanced adaptive servo-ventilation. It has 3 components. Here you have EPAP, which is like an auto EPAP, it is like an auto CPAP. So if the patient has an obstructive element, the EPAP can vary according to the requirement of the patient's need, depending upon the different sleep stages or posture, position during the sleep. So there is the setting of auto EPAP, and then you have auto IPAP, where the patient will detect, the machine will detect the periodic breathing and provide the necessary support. And then you can also have a auto backup rate, particularly during central apnea phase when the patient is not breathing at all. At that time, before a patient develops a significant hypoxia, so the backup rate can be provided in these cases. So what is the advantage of using ASV in these patients with central sleep apnea or congestive heart failure with periodic breathing? You can see that different modalities of treatment has been tried. People have tried oxygen therapy in these cases. People have tried standard CPAP, BPAP, and auto ESV, and you see that with auto ASV, there is a maximum reduction in the central apnea events. So ASV has been found to be much better than the other devices in reducing the central sleep apnea index. This is another study which shows that this is the baseline central sleep apnea index, and you can see that there is a significant reduction in the central apnea hypopnea index with ASV. Here, an interesting thing you must see that you should not be using BiPAP S mode in this patient because it can result into further worsening of the apnea hypopnea index. So if you use BiPAP S, this patient may have significant tendency to hyperventilate and may reduce their PCO2, and their periodic breathing or central apnea may become worse. So the choice has to be between BiPAP ST or the ASV devices. Now, not only it improves the apnea hypopnea index, but it also improves in the left ventricular ejection fraction in these things. So patients who have congestive heart failure and low ejection fraction with the regular use of ASV, there is a significant improvement in their left ejection fraction. Here also you can see that with ASV there is a significant reduction in the AHI index and also improvement in the left ventricular ejection fraction. There is another study in 2014 which compared the role of ASV vis-a-vis standard CPAP therapy, and it was found that there was no significant difference in terms of improvement in the left ventricular ejection fraction, in terms of resolution of AHI index, and also in terms of improvement in the ESS score. So this study found that ASV and CPAP were equivalent. However, recently in the last year, 2015 September, adaptive servo-ventilation for central sleep apnea and systolic heart failure. This was a large trial, which was a randomized control trial, which was conducted, and what they found that adaptive servo-ventilation had no significant effect on the primary endpoint in patients who had heart failure with reduced ejection fraction and predominant central sleep apnea. But what they found that the all-cause and cardiovascular mortality were both increased with this therapy. So this was something which was very startling, and this servo-HF trial showed that ASV may be harmful in patients with congestive heart failure, and particularly those with the low systolic function or low left ventricular ejection fraction. So with this, the advisory came that ASV should not be used in patients with central sleep apnea due to heart failure with the reduced ejection fraction. So at present, this device is not being recommended to use for this, and to treat your patients of congestive heart failure with periodic breathing, CPAP probably may be the best treatment at present. The next mode is the average volume assured pressure support, or what you call VT BPAP or AVAPS mode. Here basically you have patients with overlap syndrome, or you have patients with COPD with chronic hypercapnic respiratory failure, where you choose an EPAP, basically EPAP to control the obstructive sleep apnea. You give an EPAP to stabilize the upper airway, and then IPAP is given the IPAP is actually given in the form of a window. So you want to target a particular tidal volume. So you set a tidal volume and the machine sees to it that the patient must be delivered a given tidal volume. There are situations when the tidal volume drops, particularly during sleep. When patient goes into REM sleep, there is a marked hypotonia of their accessory muscles. There may be a significant drop in the muscle tone and the inspiratory force, and this may result into fall in tidal volume and results in hypoventilation. So when machine detects that there is a drop in the tidal volume, it automatically raises the IPAP and then restores the tidal volume. So this is what we have in volume targeted or volume assured BPAP, and this mode is now being tried in various conditions and is being studied, and we at present we do not have very definite evidence that this mode is superior to the conventional BPAP mode. So to conclude, CPAP remains the treatment of choice for most OSA patients. So this is the standard treatment for patients with OSA, for patients with obesity hyperventilation syndrome, and even patients with central sleep apnea. It may also be effective in many patients, as I mentioned to you, with OHS, overlap syndrome, complex sleep apnea, and patients with CS associated with heart failure and low ejection fraction. APAP device provides the lowest effective pressure for a given posture or a sleep stage. So auto CPAP is a device which will give you the lowest average pressure. So for patients who are pressure intolerant, this may be a device of choice. BPAP, APAP or flexible PAP devices have not significantly improved adherence to PAP treatment for unselected patients, but those patients who are intolerant to the standard CPAP therapy, these devices may have a role. BPAP in spontaneous mode is used for pressure intolerant OSA patient and to deliver pressure support. BPAP in ST mode is used for the treatment of hypercapnic patients who have central apneas or central ventilatory control disorders, and BPAP in ST mode is also used for patients who may not reliably trigger the machine due to neuromuscular or chest wall disorders. And ASV is not recommended in patients with CSA due to heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. However, it can be considered for heart failure with preserved ejection fraction and idiopathic CSA. And it is also suggested not to use BPAP in these patients based on the analogous mechanism of effect between ASV and BPAP. Thank you.